The point of today's video, hopefully, will be to demonstrate the ways in which the globalists get together in their private meetings and figure out how to manipulate us. And I'm going to be using more clips from that Event 201 that was held in October 2019 in New York City. These were the organizations that I showed you were part of this Event 201. This was a meeting that was to game out the response to a global pandemic. Wouldn't you know it? A global coronavirus pandemic. They gamed this out in October 2019 in New York City, and now we are in the midst of one. What I want to do specifically today, I want to go through with you the part about communications, because what I think this shows is that public opinion, the opinion and stance of world leaders, none of that matters to them. None of it matters. All they want is to get their own way. They want to be the only people to give out the messaging on any health-related issues from now on. They want the World Health Organization to basically be like the central franchise of all the hospitals and medical schools and clinics worldwide. These are not productive people. These are middlemen. These are control freaks. They are living off of us. And yet they seek nothing more than to control us, control our every thought, control all the information we hear, to take our money, to undermine our leaders. And I want you to hear it from their own mouths. The first clip I want you to hear is from an Australian woman who used to work for the World Bank, or maybe does now work for the World Bank. I think she might. She's going to tell you in this clip, recorded at Event 201, what the real purpose of communication is.
I just want to focus, if I could, for a second on why we communicate, what the purpose of this communication is. So there seem to be several elements to this conversation, one of which is to get the facts, however you define them, out there. But let's be completely clear. We have known for many years that tobacco kills you if you consume it. It's a fact. And it's a crapshoot whether you're going to be in the 50% proportion who's going to die very young, but we know this as a fact. There are some things we know that are widely held. Doesn't mean it always changes people's behaviour. So I think we should also focus in a conversation about communication, about what the purpose of that communication is, and think about what we know about incentivising the kind of behaviours we want to see. But we should also think in a communication sense, it's not just about handing people a piece of knowledge. It's also about how we incentivize them to manage their behaviors, which in any...
Who does she think she is? I mean, what do they want right now from us with this coronavirus? What are they really stressing? One of the things is this social distancing. And I'm seeing people pick up this word as if this word's been in their vocabulary all their lives. Look at all the people going along with this. CBC News, now is the time for social distancing. Andrew Yang, we should start practicing social distance. Dan Rather just says, I social distance. So it's become a virtue signal. My friend in Seattle told me that in Seattle their slogan is don't kill your grandparents. So she says if you go out and you do not obey them, it could lead to you killing your grandparents or parents. So you see the game they're playing. It's a game like if you dare to go against this new sudden social norm, well, you're going to be responsible for grave harm. What's the next clip? This is Timothy Evans of the World Bank. Listen to what he has to say. We're going to shift gears slightly because now he's talking about the fact that it's very difficult to influence world leaders. So listen to his plan.
I think you're right. It's important that the UN and WHO remain very clear. But when they challenge governments directly, they often get into this issue of sovereignty. And so I think it's really important not to have that as the only response. I think it's really critical to think about soft power influence, which is other influentials who can call up the head of state, or powerful constituencies within those countries. We've seen this in the context of mobilizing religious leaders in the context of polio. or specific business leaders where you can soften perhaps a very hard line from government through more stealth entry points rather than trying to punish them through the international health regulations or something like that.
He looked mighty proud of himself at the end there. Stealth mode. Let's go into stealth mode. You hear what he said? If we try to push these governments to do things, we run into the issue of sovereignty. Yeah, as you should. Nation states are sovereign. They get to make their own decisions. The people decide which leader's platform they like best, and we choose it, and the leader is supposed to do our bidding. In essence, sovereignty means the will of the people. This guy wants to undermine it. It's obvious. I mean, he talked about the way to get around sovereignty. Again, I remind you, Trump has said point blank numerous times, we want nationalism, not globalism. And that's exactly what that guy was talking about. National sovereignty. Well, obviously, globalists don't like national sovereignty. They want to be the boss, and they want your tax dollars to go to them so they can boss you around from God knows where with no real concern about your local issues or what goes on in your country or anything of that nature. And they're bureaucrats. How can we trust them to get anything done? You see, when you try to work with a bureaucracy in your own country, it's already bad enough. Imagine if it was in Belgium and they were trying to look after the entire world. You really think anybody's capable of that, let alone a bunch of pointy-headed bureaucrats who've never really created anything in their whole lives? I don't. Yeah, that was quite the stunning admission on that guy. And he said you have to use the world leaders bristle when international bodies try to tell them what to do. So what we have to do is secretly call up influential people who the leader might respect and get them to harangue them, get them to pressure the government. And we see this all the time. There's this big press on. They want Trump to, first of all, get tested for the virus, which I hear he just did. But also they want him to self-isolate. So what are they doing? They're trying to lead by example. Google, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, and Twitter ask employees to stay away from Silicon Valley and Seattle headquarters as they bunker down against coronavirus. What did that guy say? He said maybe we could get, respected business leaders or others to do things that will influence the world leader who we want to change. Here's something else. Trudeau decides to self-isolate even though he didn't test positive. And then that didn't work, so they said, Jair Bolsonaro, who was just with Trump, 3 of his aides and himself tested positive for the coronavirus. And then it turned out, no, he tested negative. But that didn't stop them. They're still on today about, actually, Bolsonaro's going to take another test because we still think he's tested positive. They will stop at nothing. And I'm sure people would see through them, except for the fact that they have enacted this full spectrum dominance thing. They're pulling out all the stops. They're using all their assets everywhere. The next clip is more on that same topic. Another person at the Event 201 panel speaks about how they make use of business leaders to impress messages onto the public and the leaders of the area. And he tells you why.
I think it's important to think about what atypical players in the private sector can we bring to bear in this. So bringing multinational pharmaceutical companies to talk about who are self-interested about why their products are safe could be seen as non-credible. But if I think about the champion for TB in South Africa was Nando's Chicken. And so I think as we think about these large atypical players who have no credible vested interest in this issue but have a strong voice that's economically differentiated for their governments as well in their country, they're going to listen to them with some respect, I think would be very important.
Okay.
He admits, we can't have the pharma CEOs come out and advocate for this health change, policy change, because everyone would see what was going on if we did that. Big pharma CEOs wouldn't have any credibility with the public. So what we do instead is we get somebody fun like the guy from Nando's Chicken, and we train him up on the message, and we put him out there. And then suddenly there's a seemingly disinterested party talking on the news about exactly what we want to have happen. For example, Apple Computer. They've just announced today that they are closing all their stores outside China. Outside China, including Britain, for 2 weeks. That's funny, they're keeping their China stores open. I didn't even notice that detail before I went to read it to you. There you go. So another one coming up. Another one stepping up to the plate to be the repeater, the voice, the giver of the message. The same. They're just going to amplify full spectrum dominance. And we've got this out of England today. Sporting bodies made their own decisions and called off events, and the government was forced to follow. Looks like the World Economic Forum think tank Event 201 was right on the money. That's what they planned, and that's what is happening before our eyes. Are you paying attention? Exactly what they planned is happening before our eyes. And here Axios says, coronavirus sports cancellations are a reality check for most Americans. The period of coronavirus complacency came to a dramatic end in the last 48 hours as the stock market plunged, states issued grim warnings, and schools closed their doors. But it was the cancellation of sports, March Madness in particular, that hit the hardest for some Americans, serving as a reality check to just how serious this situation is. It's in this moment that leagues, commissioners, athletes, and other sports figures have the power to lead by example. That's exactly what they planned. Here's a little montage of many members of the panel describing how they're going to get control and keep control of the message. Listen.
I think as in previous conversations where we've talked about centralization around management of information or public health needs, there needs to be a centralized response around the communications approach that then is cascaded to informed advocates, represented in the NGO communities, the medical professionals, et cetera.
You mean centralized internationally?
But centralized on an international basis, because I think there needs to be a central repository of data, facts, and key messages.
My staff have advised me that basically the level of support for travel restrictions is somewhere between 57 and 90%. Now, we all know politicians will be influenced by the general view in the community, but we can use that in a positive way. The truth of the matter
speak to them very clearly in the context of a daily briefing from, in this case, I can't imagine any other institution than WHO being the focal point.
And just to limit or even stop social media would create a huge damage. And we should use it, we should get it on our side, we should work together with them, and we should try to avoid this misinformation.
Add to it maybe by saying that I think one of the things we want to do is work with telecommunication companies to actually ensure that everybody has access to the kind of communications that we're interested in providing, because that's going to be critical for dealing.
So not necessarily, sometimes the healthcare workers, they know something, but if they are not well trained, they might give the wrong information, but also they might say something, I don't know. Even I don't know, that could hurt.
No, I think a complementary tactic, too, is to tap faith-based organizations and civil society and other institutions to recruit them also to basically, almost at a grassroots level, continue to basically have the integrity of the
looping back into the trust barometer, last year in Davos it was released that trust in traditional media sources has grown while trust in social media sources has gone down, specifically after the last elections in the United States. So
the social media platforms, there's an opportunity to understand who it is that's susceptible in what form to misinformation. So I think there's an opportunity.
They want to centralize the message internationally, and they want to filter it down through every possible organization, all the way to their fake grassroots level. They even want to train healthcare providers to stay on message. I mean, why should doctors, nurses, and healthcare aides get to tell the truth anymore? No, the important thing is they say what the WHO, World Health Organization, wants them to say. And that last guy, suggesting that they can use social media to track and figure out those of us who are quote-unquote susceptible to mis and disinformation, yeah, they don't want anyone thinking their own thoughts. They want their thoughts to be in our head. And they have another little strategy which they call flood the zone.
A couple of strategies that are available to us, one of which is the flood strategy.
And flooding good information.
Flood the zone.
Flood.
A manifestation of flood.
Flood good information.
Flood the zone?
They all talked about it. It's very successful. It's basically building an impenetrable wall of noise that reflects their point of view. I'm sure you've noticed it. For example, here's CNN's homepage. It's all corona all the time, with maybe the odd thing that isn't about it. Yet, no, it looks like it's all about coronavirus. Here's NBC News. Coronavirus, travel ban, state of emergency, think on coronavirus. Here's Netflix doing a tiny bit of coincident programming, but they obviously planned this and filmed this and edited this a year or so ago, you would think. This person posts, I ran across this on Netflix yesterday. What are the odds Netflix would produce a series called Pandemic for release in 2020 before we had the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic? This is just a coincidence, they say. Is it just a coincidence that Michelle and Barack Obama both became producers for Netflix and in April 2019 revealed the shows and films they're working on? I don't know if they did the pandemic one or not. But just seems to me that it's a lot of usual suspects out there. The ones who are always the biggest mouths against President Trump, his natural enemies. They're all the ones that are reacting super strong and super fast to the messaging that the WHO wants to put out. For example, Joy Behar, she steps back from The View. That's one day ago. Bill Maher and his show, and then John Oliver going dark after Sunday. The Netflix series Grace and Frankie was amongst the latest to announce a hiatus. That's Jane Fonda, Hanoi Jane, known for her leftist politics and her opposition to the president. And then, of course, we can't forget Ellen DeGeneres and Jimmy Fallon. All of these people changing the way they do business, either canceling their series or refusing to film in front of an audience or taking a hiatus. How come these are all the same people that are always opposed to President Trump? It's almost like a group such as the Event 201 group kind of recruited them.
To recruit them also.
But nah, I'm probably way off. It couldn't possibly be that these people planned to recruit spokespeople and then went out and did it. That couldn't possibly be right. Like Joe M says here, 16 famous politicians or celebrities have come down with coronavirus, or they think they have it. They've made big announcements. And Joe does some math. There are 1,600 cases of coronavirus in the U.S. 1% of those cases, 16, are famous politicians or celebrities. 0.00041% of the population are famous. Per capita, rich people with bodyguards are 2,400 times more likely to contract the virus. He says he's not buying it. Me neither. How would they be exposed if the rest of us aren't exposed? Where have they been going, I wonder? What would make them more at risk? Is it logical that so many of them got the virus? Are the people who they were nearby, are they all in quarantine? I'd like some more details on this. And by the way, I told you that they were haranguing Trump to get the test, haranguing Trump to self-isolate. Well, there's another thing they've been doing is they've been tracking handshakes because we're supposed to be doing social distancing, right? We're not supposed to be touching each other. We're not supposed to be touching our faces. We're not supposed to be touching anything. And so now a new sin that they just created is shaking hands. The masculine bluster of Trump's coronavirus handshaking tour. It's so tiresome. The other day they had this same thing with Mike Pompeo. They're like, Mike Pompeo meets with so-and-so and shakes his hand. I feel like I'm living in the Twilight Zone, and like I tweeted, COVID-19 is the new climate change, cancel culture, purity test, scarlet letter, guilty until proven innocent, witch hunt. I cannot stand the totalitarians anymore. There's this rumor that, the internet might go down, but no, they're making absolutely sure that's not going to happen. Telecom companies pledge not to cut your internet off during the coronavirus pandemic. AT&T, Comcast, Verizon, and others agree not to overcharge people for their overages. And even in Canada, Rogers, TELUS, TechSavvy suspend data overage charges. Top U.S. providers pledge to help maintain internet access. This is the new wave of news. So obviously they really, really, really want us to have internet during this time, probably so they can flood the zone with their messaging.
Flooding good information.
Flood the zone.
Flood.
A manifestation of flood.
Flood good information.
Flood the zone?
They're trying to make a game of it. Look at this. Look at this from Event 201. They gave out plushie dolls of viruses. And here from the World Health Organization, they put out this sheet, Coping with Stress During the COVID Outbreak. Don't believe everything you hear. Stay updated and use information from trusted sources like your health authority, World Health Organization, or your local Red Cross or Red Crescent. And this one's the best. Limit worry and agitation by lessening the time you and your family spend watching or listening to media coverage that you perceive as upsetting. Well, I personally think that this is an excellent time for the entire world to red pill. Go on YouTube and look up, what is this QAnon thing? What are they talking about red pilling? Why are people so intensely interested in conspiracy theories? Who are the top alternate media providers and video makers and writers out there on the internet? That's what I hope people do with their unlimited data packages and their guaranteed internet access while they're stuck at home with no sports, no TV, no music festivals, no travel, nothing else, basically no stores open. That's what you all should be doing. I've got a couple hundred videos you could go through. And on my webpage, you can see a list. I've got a list there of recommended channels that have excellent content if you want to learn all about this, and I think you should. Because I'm showing you right now that if you don't take information and knowledge into your own hands, they are going to put it there and they're going to steer you with it. They're going to drag you around by the nose with their messaging. You heard that woman right off the start.
Some things we know that are widely held doesn't mean it always changes people's behaviour. So I think we should also focus in a conversation about communication, about what the purpose of that communication is.
They want to modify and manage your behavior. So you need to find out what it is they don't want you to hear. You need to find out why they're putting their message everywhere and flooding the zone so that you can't see past. You're like, what? I'm trying to hear somebody else, but all I can hear is you loudmouths. Well, that's what they want. These organizations want to rule the world, and they want you to pay for it. I'm going to stop talking now. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to leave me a thumbs up and a comment. I love seeing the comments. Also, subscribe if you haven't. In case YouTube decides to take away my channel, which who knows, they might. I'm flying right in the face of the official message now. Please subscribe over on BitChute. I'm at 99freemind on BitChute. I'll leave the link in the description box. And finally, of course, if you would like to drop me a financial tip for the work I've already done, I will accept that gladly with many thanks. You can do that through PayPal, paypal.me/Polly St. George, link in the description box, or you can send me something through the regular post. I have a P.O. Box address available on my website on the contact page, and the link to that will be in the description box as well. I guess that's it for now. Thank you everybody for being here. Don't panic. Don't let the fearmongers get to you. I'm seeing the odd post by people who are in terrible despair about this. And one more thing. Yes, prepare, because they are going for it. They are going for it in the biggest way I've ever seen. They are going to cause pandemonium and chaos. Things will be upside down. So yeah, it's wise to have a stockpile of the things you're going to want and need. It's just wise. And cash at home, cash money too, before they get rid of it. Press back on that one like your life depends on it. Cash must always stay available. I said I was going to stop talking, and I kept talking. So I'm going to stop talking now. Until next time, peace out.